What's happening, everybody? So I got an update here for you on the mandolin. I just finished painting that. Can we get better light on there? Oh, there you go. That's cool. So I know my camera does everything backwards. I don't know why. But it says G24, and that stands for Gibson 1924. And that is just a light mist coat of the same red that is on the instrument. So it actually looks really cool together. It's hard to see on the camera, but as you can see, I got the new ferrules pressed in. They are bigger than the old ferrules, so I had to drill, and then I used a C clamp to press them in. The old ferrule is a little finer. Here's the old ferrule here. So you can see these are a bit chunkier. These actually, in my opinion, were probably nicer, but there was only like 3 or 4 of them, so we were missing some of these. So there were not a lot of options for ferrules for a 1924 Gibson A1. It was that or gold, right? But they're all going to be the same size. But there they are. They look okay. I'm okay with them. At least we got all 8 of them in there. We have got, well, we taped off the front of this when we did the drilling. So when I pulled the tape off, the tape left some marks in the lacquer. So I'm going to have to rebuff this. I'm going to have to redo all this. The instrument's getting handled a lot as it gets worked on. It gets laid on a terry towel. It gets slid around. It gets dirty handprints all over the top of it. Don't forget, I still have to shape the bottom of the bridge where it's going to sit on top of the guitar. So I'm going to tape a piece of sandpaper onto the guitar. I'm going to be using that sandpaper to shape the bottom legs of the bridge, which could leave marks in the lacquer. When I pull the tape off, that could leave more marks in the lacquer. So we're not going to do any more finishing until after all that stuff is done. And then we'll do like a 2500 sand. Up here, I don't think I'll sand anything. I'll just use a polishing compound to get any marks out of here, because I'd have to pop the ferrules out and they're pressed in, so I don't want to mess with that. But I think this is in good enough shape that we could just go over this and buff it out real quick, real easy. I think that's going to look super cool on there. We did get the cracks filled. Aesthetically, it looks a lot better, but more importantly than that, we've got the fretboard stabilized, because those cracks would just keep crawling their way up the neck. And now that we got them all filled with a real thin super glue, some of them took 3 fills, and in order for you to determine how many fills you need, you got to scrape it, you got to scrape the excess off. So I don't want to do any more scraping on this fretboard than I absolutely have to. You can still see them a little bit, but not like the open cracks that they were. And this fretboard is not oiled yet, which will hide them even better. But before I oil them, I have to make the nut for it, and I have to redo the frets. Now, the frets are pretty level, you know, for it being 100 years old. They're really flat, right? But they're worn. You can see try and get the angle just right. There you go. See those string marks in them? They're not quite deep enough for my fingernail to catch. These are. My fingernail can actually catch in some of those, they're so deep. Now I'm not going to be able to get rid of all that. It's just too much. They're too dented in for me to get rid of all of it. But I can get rid of most of it, which I will. After I do that, I will have to re-crown the frets, and they're so tiny that none of my fret crowning tools are going to work on there because they're all for guitar frets, and these are so much smaller than guitar frets. I should have had a fret laying out so you guys can see the difference, because you think guitar frets are tiny until you try to work on something like that. Then you know what tiny is. And I'm just gonna have to crown them by hand. I'll use probably like a 1000 grit sandpaper to try to round out any flats that I put in from filing these down, to try to get rid of some of the string marks. One of the cool things is it's a flat fretboard. There's no radius to it, so it should be easy to file them down flat and get them all perfect. It's just a matter of going back and trying to crown those, whatever flats I put in it from filing. I have to try to round that over with sandpaper. That's the only option that I have. I don't even know if they make I'm sure they do. I'm sure they make a fret crowning tool for those, but it's nothing that I'll ever use ever again, so I'll just do it by hand. It'll take longer. So, let's set this down. You saw how the ferrules look, and the ferrules work very nicely with both the old hardware and with the new hardware. All right, so I found a set of these, a similar set of these on StuMac for $269, and they looked suspiciously like this set on Amazon for $20. Now, both websites said that these fit that instrument. Well, they don't. Here's the old ones. I got them all taken apart. I took these apart. I soaked them in a hydrogen peroxide bath. I didn't want to use anything harsher than that because I don't want to risk discoloring these tuners or pitting the metal. It's 100 years old, so I got to use everything I use. Got to be pretty gentle. Now, after the hydrogen bath, I got a small toothbrush and I scrubbed out any of the loose dirt that I could, and that alone made such a huge difference in how these work. And these, in my opinion, are going to be so much better than the new ones. And I'm going to show you why. The new ones, number one, they don't fit, right? Look at the post spacing and see these 4 holes. These are where the posts go. So if we line them up, see the top one is lined up. Look at the bottom one. So these won't even fit the instrument, right? In order for me to fit these in the instrument, I'd have to remove metal from these, which we could do, but we're going to call that Plan B. I do like that these are a 14:1 ratio. What that means, you're going to hear that all the time when they talk about tuners, no matter what the instrument is. They all have a ratio. I just discovered this. Look at this. That one is way loose compared to that one. Oh my goodness. Dude. Look at that. Okay. I just found that out just now, so that's terrible. Okay, looks like we're going to be using the old ones. Okay, but there's one thing that I like about this. These are 14 to 1. So look at the number of teeth on that gear. Here is the old one. And look at the number of teeth on that gear. So when I saw these two side by side, I went, well, if this is 14 to 1, and this has got way less teeth on it, it's got to be like a 10 to 1 or 9 to 1, or, it's going to be too low of a gear ratio, which I don't want to use that. So I put it back together and I tested it. I cranked it and cranked it and cranked it. And what I found out is that these are actually 12 to 1. So not nearly as bad as I thought they were going to be. They do have some burrs on them. The metal's not nice and smooth. It's got some sharp, jabby, stabby little burrs sticking out of them. So I'll have to clean these up. I already cleaned up the bottoms of them where this makes contact with the plate, because that's a metal to metal point, and you want that, both the surface of that and the surface that it goes up against, to be nice and clean and perfect, so that you don't have any chance for anything to bind up in there, or make this more difficult to turn. On the new ones, they're just like a piece of sheet metal here that have these ears stamped out, and it's got this C-shaped piece right here that the tuner pops in to that C-shaped piece, because it's got a slot in it here and another slot in it here. And the pointer. Okay, it's got a slot in it here and another slot here, and those two slots go into this C-shaped piece right here. Okay, so here's the C, goes this way, then the post drops down into that C, and then what holds that post in place is this gear right here. This gear is like the cap for this post, and that screw holds this gear onto this post. What that means is, what's holding this tuner in that slot is that gear. Now, if your string is pulling on the post, which it is, and it's also trying to unwind itself, it's trying to turn itself, then the only thing that's holding this shaft in this C-shaped brackets there is that gear. To me, that means that this post has a point of friction opposite the shaft. So the shaft is down here. The shaft is trying to pull this direction, which means that this post is going to be rubbing up against this piece of metal, this metal plate right there. It's a friction point. I don't like that. That's not a great design. It looks like it's an easy design, but it's not a great design. Now, because this bracket is too long and these posts are spread out too far for it to fit that instrument, the only way we can make these fit is to make this shorter. The only way we can do that is by removing metal. We'd have to take out a cut, and take out a cut, and take out another cut, making these effectively singles, right? Well, why not just use singles then? Well, because the holes are so close together that singles will not fit. They'll stack up against each other, and the second one won't fit. Never mind the fourth one. So I've seen them where people trick them out, where they take the whole single, and instead of having it a single and a single and a single, they'll take it and they'll trick it out. They'll turn it like that and turn it like that, so that you can put them closer together in order to make them fit. That looks tricked out to me. It also looks like the edge of the tuner, this part of the tuner is no longer coming straight off the headstock. Now it's on an angle, and it's like when you turn it, it's almost touching the side of the headstock. So that's not really a great option for me. So I'd have to cut a slot out of here. If I cut the right size slot here, here, and here, I could remove enough metal to make the whole strip of them shorter to fit. That's what I did. Here's one. Here's another one. I got a top and a bottom and two middles. Now I just happen to have enough room. Here's the gear. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to hold this to show you guys. I just happen to have enough room right here and right on that corner right there to drill a hole to put a screw in this corner and back here on this tab. I've seen them where they only have one hole. Alright, so if you only have one hole in this tab, that one screw hole is like a pivot for the tuner. And the only thing holding this tuner in place besides that screw is the shaft that goes through the ferrule. So if it's trying to pull it, then the shaft is going to be up against the shaft of the post is going to be up against the ferrule, like crammed up against the ferrule, because it's keeping it from pivoting. That's another friction point. On this design, you don't have that. This is where it is, and it's not ever going to move because it's got these tabs that are held onto this back plate, not by the gear or the post, but by these two welded brackets. Those are the welds. You see the weld wire in the middle on the back. So these brackets are holding this shaft in place, not the gear. The gear is not going to hold that in place. So any stress on that shaft is directly on those welds, which is on the plate, which is screwed into the back of the headstock. It's not transferring stress to the post, which is rubbing up against the ferrule, which is going to be a friction point. Hopefully you're following along with all that, because friction points are what makes these difficult to turn. Okay, I put these in a hydrogen peroxide bath. I scrubbed the dirt out of them. I took it out. I couldn't believe how great this one came out. This is like, it doesn't even have oil on it yet, and it's like brand new, right? So imagine I WD-40 this, I scrub it, and then I 3-in-1 anywhere that I have metal to metal contact. These are going to be like brand new, right? On this one, I got 3 of the 4 of them like brand new. This one is still stiff. Couple reasons it could be stiff. The shaft might be bent. It might be like this or like this. Now I've had that before. especially on these with a real fine shaft, where when you turn it, you can see that as you rotate, that shaft goes like this. That means that the shaft is bent. Usually it's bent right here. No problem. We're just going to take a pair of pliers and we're just going to bend that back. I have tried that more times than I care to admit, and in every single case, I made it worse. You can't unbend a bent shaft and expect it to be better. You're only going to make it worse. You can go, okay, let me turn it so it's at the lowest. Okay, right now it's at the lowest point, so that means I got to bend it straight up, and you bend it straight up, and it doesn't bend where you wanted it to bend. So before I figured out that this was the problem, this one was also sticky. So what I did for this one is I measured the distance between this bracket, this welded on little bracket, and this welded on little bracket on all four of them and all four of the other ones. And I got an average number. And what I found out was that these two were bigger than all the other ones. So I just took my slip joints and I pinched those two brackets together to try to make them a little bit smaller. That worked on two of the three bad ones. But remember, all I can do is bend the outside of this bracket in towards the other bracket. I cannot bend this backside of the bracket because it's welded to the plate. So if I can take them and make them like in a little bit so they're right at the front but still too wide at the back, or maybe too wide at the back and I or too close, they're either bent this way or they're bent this way, and I just can make them right at half of it. The half that faces the outer portion of the tab. I can't do anything about where it's welded, but by doing that, I got this so that it's turning, it's pretty free. It's right now, I'd say it's at 75%, whereas if it was at 50%, I'd say I can't use it. It's too stiff. It's going to be a problem. This is going to strip off one day, and then it's not going to be usable. So right now it's working pretty good. It hasn't been polished. It hasn't been oiled. It's still got those to go through before I say, okay, it's good. Now it's going to be just fine. But I don't have to worry about adding additional friction points to it because of its design that I would be adding to something like this, where now I have another friction point between the post and the ferrule, or now I have another friction point here because this has too much play in it, or now I have another friction point between the post and the back plate. It's just all these friction points that make these difficult to turn. And then I was like, well, these are pretty darn good now. Like 7 of them are great, and the one that I'm saying is still not right is this tight. Okay, it's this tight. When I hold up the brand new one, I go, that's nice and loose. That's nice and loose. That's not very loose at all. In fact, brand new out of the box, that one is tighter than this one that's not even oiled yet. So, which ones do you think I'm going to wind up using? I did all this work as a backup plan, just in case. Sometimes you go, I'm just going to bend these little tabs in just a little bit to see if that makes it any better. Snap. So always have a backup plan, right? and don't try to overbend stuff, right? Just try to keep it within realistic expectations. And remember that there's other things that you can try to see if it makes it any better. In this case, it's going to be polishing this up and getting some oil in there in all the right places. Uh, this, the bottoms of these, is a potential friction point between the bottom of that gear and the plate that it rides up against. So if I don't have good flat contact on there, if I got any burrs or any debris or anything in there that's making this difficult to turn, it's going to add that friction to this. And it's going to, I could add back on, but as of right now, I'm so much looser than these pieces of junk out of the box that I don't think it matters at all. And these are not oiled. They're not cleaned up. I gotta file off the burrs on these teeth, and I think that'll allow it to turn even more smoothly. So I think Plan B is out the window, right? Remember, some of you guys might be thinking, well, then why don't you use those gears on the new one so that you can go on the old one so that you can go from a 12-to-1 to a 14-to-1. Well, remember that those gears have to mesh with that drive right there. So if the drive on the shaft isn't cut for those gears, then different gears won't fit into those grooves for that drive on the shaft right there. So it's not, I can't take parts off of this one and put them on this one because they're just two entirely different ratios. For one, they're different. They're made differently. They're just not compatible with each other. And I kind of doubt that I could even buy these gears. So I haven't even looked, but I don't really think I'm going to have to. I think I can get these cleaned up. And if I can just get this one, yeah, it's like hardly stiffer at all. It's not like it gets to one spot and now it's stiff and then now it's loose. It's just even. I have even resistance along the whole thing. And what it looks like to me, this is going to sound crazy. What it looks like to me wow. I wonder if you guys can see that on camera. I'm going to hold it as still as I can, and I'm going to turn it. And you guys just watch this shaft right there. I'm going to turn it towards you so you can see it. I'm going to try to hold it nice and rigid for you. And watch the shaft. All right, it's going to be impossible for you to see. But when I look at it, what it looks like to me is it looks to me like this part of the shaft is not centered with the rest of it. So in other words, when they cut this is not centered on this anymore. It looks like this part of the shaft is going like this. It looks like it's not the center of where it turns, whereas this one, I don't see any movement at all between the shaft and the drive part of it. When I turn this one, it looks perfectly centered, but when I turn this one, it looks to me like the shaft is going not like this, like it's bent. It looks like it's going like this, like that's off center. So I wonder if this was stiff when it was brand spanking new. I wonder if it was just still that stiff. That's kind of cool. I mean, not cool, but cool. Well, we'll see what polishing and oil does to them, but I think we all figured out exactly which hardware we're going to be using on this. So that's all I got for this vid, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.